Yeah, stand-up comedy is a thing that I've been a fan of since I was a kid. I don't know if you've followed it much at all. Like, have you got favorite comedians at all out there that makes you laugh?
Yeah. They come and go. Like sometimes it depends. Sometimes it's a bit repetitive. With some of them, they just keep repeating some.
Don't have any new material or anything.
Nah, it's kind of all the same thing, and you're just like, yeah. Sometimes, and the guys that are very offensive, like and say things that people shouldn't, it just gives you more of a kick nowadays because they're not allowed to do that. So
yeah, I know. It's strange. Like, it's shifted so much in the last couple of years, where what used to be considered funny is now considered, offensive and stuff. And those goalposts always change every 10 years or whatever, and it's hard to keep up. Like, now it used to be every 10 years or whatever, and now it's like every 6 months is always something new. It's like, oh, now we can't say this and now we can't say that, and comedians seem to be getting the most flack for what you can and cannot say publicly. More than anyone else, it seems. Obviously a lot of celebrities and politicians and stuff are in the same boat, but it seems like the spotlight is more so on the comedians. One particular comedian that we are both going to be catching in Perth, Australia in November is Louis C.K. And I think for anyone who is familiar with Louis C.K., he obviously got caught into some backlash a few years ago with some, and granted, he was in the wrong in what he did, but it wasn't as, I don't want to say as bad, but it wasn't really what everyone else was making it out to be. Do you know what I mean? And there's so much more to the story to what happened that isn't sort of been publicly, spread. A lot of it is sort of just what the media is using, and sort of you taking sound bites and taking things out of context and saying, well, this is what happened. It's like, no, there's much more to the story to that. And, obviously he took a couple of years off and then come back and sort of started playing in clubs again, bit by bit, slowly getting back into it. And his last couple of specials have been amazing. Some of the funniest stuff he's ever done. And he's talked about the incident as well. Like, he just publicly just went, this is what happened. I fucked up and this and that. But he didn't try to defend himself. He didn't try to argue the point or anything. He just sort of this is what happened and it is what it is.
Yeah.
And then everyone else around him is just arguing and debating about, how, bad was it really compared to what it actually was, so... but it'll be interesting to see, is it going to be any picketing outside of the arena where he's playing when he comes to Perth?
Hopefully, we might be able to get some footage.
Well, we're definitely going to capture it, as much as we can until we get inside, because I think he has a no-phone policy as well. So we can't sort of use our phones when the show is on, which I wasn't planning on doing anyway,
You're allowed to have it, but it's in your pocket.
Yeah. Have you been to shows where they've banned mobile phones? I saw Tool a few years ago, right before the pandemic hit, and they had a policy everywhere saying you couldn't use your phones and stuff.
Yeah, that was right. Yeah, no one could. But I think we did anyway.
I think people were, but I did notice those security guards were sort of watching, and then if they saw anyone they wouldn't go into the crowd because they wouldn't do it. But if they saw anyone near them that was using the phone, they would tap them on the shoulder and go, no, you can't use that and stuff. So I did see that happening. They were monitoring it, but you can't enforce that when there's 20,000 people in the arena.
Yeah, because if everyone just whipped out a phone, what are you going to do?
Ban everyone, and then they're playing in front of no one,
Yeah.
So... I believe Louis C.K. has the same rule. I don't know if it's because of Louis C.K. or the venue has that policy. I don't know what the rule is with that. But, I have seen that become more of a common thing where they have to the point where they actually will take the phone from you and put it into a locked box or whatever and stuff. But it should be a fun night, I reckon, and we'll see what he says, because he hasn't been in Australia in a while. I've never seen him before.
Yeah.
That should be a good one, I reckon. And we'll come back and report on it as well, and give our thoughts on what actually happened, and it should be good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But getting back to sort of stand-up comedy and the politics behind it, what are your thoughts on what's going on as far as people taking offense to every little thing that comedians say these days?
I think it's kind of sad in a way, because people have lost their backbone. They can't have a laugh. Some things offend people, and they get so mad about it. you can't even have a laugh anymore. You know, it's.
I mean, the whole idea behind stand-up comedy, like, is it's jokes.
Yeah.
Like, that's literally what it is. Like, is there a thing now where there's certain things you can't joke about? I mean, George Carlin made this point 30 plus years ago, whatever it was, where he said you can joke about anything. It just depends on the context of how you use it. And it's a great point, and it still stands up to this day.
Yeah, it does.
You know, like, you can joke about anything. It just depends. And everyone's got that one thing that they're offended by. Like, everyone's got that sort of that point where they go,
kryptonite.
Yeah. Now, it just depends on what you do with that. Like, you know, like, you could just keep it to yourself and go, well, I didn't like that joke, but it doesn't mean you have to go out and tell everyone else they can't laugh about it.
Yeah.
But that's what seems to be happening these days, is like, they get offended by something, and that means everyone else must get offended as well.
Yeah. And if you're not offended, you're a bigot.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like, no, that's a personal thing. Comedy is subjective. What one person thinks is funny, another person won't. But it doesn't mean everyone should be on the same page with that.
Yeah.
So I think critical attacks, though, are a different thing, and that's not really funny. If you're literally attacking someone based on how they look or, you know, whatever, yeah, fair enough. You shouldn't be doing that. But that's not what comedians are doing. No. Or at least most comedians anyway. You know?
Seems like a war on laughter. You can't.
Yeah, it does, yeah. But then there are some comedians who just don't care, and it's like, nah, we're going to be continuing, like Dave Chappelle and Bill Burr and Louis C.K. and, you know, those guys. They're just continuing on, and just, you know, it is what it is. And if you don't like their comedy, don't listen or watch it, you know?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, some comedians' humor, it depends. It's a personal preference.
It is. It's subjective.
I think some comedies are very corny, and it's just like, nah, it doesn't work. It's kind of like, maybe, I don't know, younger me would have found that funny, but not anymore.
Yeah, and your sense of humor probably does change a little bit over time, you know.
But they're only doing what works, and, you know, like, if they get an audience, they'll keep telling that type of humor. So it's not that they're not funny. They're just, you know, they're artists doing a different different style, you know.
Yeah. And there are some comedians as well who kind of play into the political side of it, like Bill Maher, for example, is very sort of political, and there's a few other comedians like that. And I'm not a big politics kind of guy, but I can still appreciate the comedy, even though, you know, it's not my kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? So, but I like really silly humor as well, where they, like, there's a comedian named Jim Gaffigan who doesn't really get into anything topical. It's just silly and clean as well. He works clean, doesn't like swear or anything like that, and it's hilarious. Like, and it's just a different way of doing comedy, you know.
Yeah.
Brian Regan's another one which I'm a big fan of as well. Clean comedy, but just he doesn't get into like real sort of politics and topics, and it's just like, you know, goofy stuff and anecdotes and stuff like that, you know, which I don't think that stuff ever sort of dies off, like, because there's nothing offensive by any of that stuff, you know. Jerry Seinfeld's another one as well. He does the same thing.
I used to laugh, like, I used to watch Jerry Seinfeld just for entertainment value when I was a kid, and then growing up, then I started to find stuff funny. You know, it's kind of like you experience it, and then there's the timeless classic jokes that you know are still true today. It's like ridiculously, you know,
I mean, that's really how I feel about, like, my favorite comedian is George Carlin, and that's how I feel about his comedy. Is like, you know, his works span like 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
Massive. Like, he has such a huge body of work. And you can look at stuff that he did in like in the 70s and still laugh at it. Like, it's just timeless stuff. You know what I mean? It wasn't until the later years that he got quite he got quite sort of angry and bitter at the world, you know, and stuff.
I think that happens when you get old.
I definitely think by the time he got into his 60s, he was kind of like just over it and just like didn't give a shit anymore, and was like, he was just gonna, and he got really dark in the last two specials he did. He got really, really dark, and it turned some people off. Yeah. And then some people just gravitated because they just love that dark humor. You know?
Dark humor is pretty good.
I don't think it was as funny, but I was still a fan of it though. You know what I mean? But you check out his stuff from like the 70s and 80s and even 90s, and like, it's just goofy, you know, fart jokes and stuff like that. That still is, you know, I don't know. It just makes me laugh that kind of stuff never seems to, you know, die off.
Yeah. I wish there was more of that silly goose humor. It's good.
Yeah. So yeah, looking forward to Louis C.K. and obviously there are quite other ones that I'd love to go see. Like I'd love to see Dave Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle would be pretty good.
Yeah, he's just a phenomenal. I've seen all these like specials on Netflix and stuff, and he's very topical though, and can get quite political. But he makes some really good points, like solid points. He's a little philosophical in some of his stand up, which I kind of feel a lot of comedians are. They're sort of like almost like funny philosophers. You know? Gives you sort of points and things to think about, which I love. I think those comedians are the best ones where they make you think and invoke thought and stuff, you know?
Yeah. That's get a bit more of a audience interact. What is it? Can't even think of the word. Like a
like engagement or something.
Engagement, yeah. So giving everyone something to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always love that type of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just it's better than just watching.
Yeah. I mean, like it doesn't. I mean, the whole being offended stuff as well doesn't just stay with like comedy. It spreads out to a lot of different things. I mean, music's been a target for many years, especially metal music, heavy music.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then I don't know. There's like TV shows, I guess, that were done like years and years ago, which would never fly over these days.
Yeah.
But then you get things like South Park and Family Guy that are still running.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they have a lot of offensive stuff, So,
oh, yeah. So offending celebrities. And,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. We've got to do some reaction stuff, I reckon, to some Family Guy episodes.
Yeah,
or clips
for sure.
And stuff,
Yeah.
So, because to be honest, like, I think when Family Guy came in, after a few years, I kind of like, it killed off The Simpsons a little bit because The Simpsons were kind of the premier cartoon.
Yeah.
And then Family Guy came along and went, no, we're going to just go in deeper and, move things around. And
yeah. The Simpsons, like, the humor slowly died off. I mean, I'm still a fan, but,
I haven't watched any episodes in years, to be honest.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything new from them.
I think when free to air pretty much died, people stopped watching it.
Is The Simpsons available on any like streaming platforms or just on normal
Disney
TV?
Plus?
Or Disney Plus, is it?
Yes, that's right.
They used to be on Fox in the US. Yeah. So it's weird that they're on Disney
now.
Plus.
Disney owns them. They bought Fox.
Disney owned Fox?
Yep, that's right. So
wow, that's a bit of a weird like combination, Disney and Fox.
Absolutely. So you've got Aliens, I think Predator.
Movies, you mean?
Yeah, all those type of things. Like, the Alien Queen is now a Disney Queen,
Yeah, see, the Disney thing, as soon as they get involved, things just start to change a little bit where it's like not as, whatever. Like, they're and when we were talking about like offensive stuff, and they're the ones that sort of like will censor stuff a lot of times because they're a little bit more, I guess, family oriented or family friendly.
Absolutely. And it's kind of stupid because, can you imagine you're living your life as a fragile, human being, sheltered all your life, and then real world hits you and you absolutely have a mental breakdown? It's because everyone was like, everything's okay, you got to be sheltered and everything like that. You got to have a safe space, and your life's going to be hell when
the real world comes along. Yeah. I think you're definitely right. Like the sheltered part of it is definitely something that kids, because like you think about like what's going on when you walk down the street or whatever, and it used to be where kids would be playing in the playground and riding their bikes and stuff, and you just don't see that as much anymore. And so that sort of plays into the whole sheltered life. They're just staying indoors all the time, and they're having all these play dates and things like that where everything is just organized rather than having natural sort of like, playtime and social stuff, and there was this video clip that I saw. It was in the US, and there was like a Comic-Con type of event. And this woman was a security guard there, and she was asked, what were her thoughts on like how the whole event had been happening. And the one thing that she was saying was that she found that a lot of the patrons who were like coming in, granted there were a lot of them were sort of younger audience people, she found them to be quite rude and unsociable, didn't have any sort of social etiquette at all. And she found that quite interesting, It seems like they're learning a lot of their behaviors and stuff online, and that they don't know how to interact with people in the real world because, like, again, going back to that point of being sheltered so much. So, and it's interesting, and this is coming from someone who was just observing what, a lot of the people were coming in. And granted, this was like a complete nerd fest, so there's that cliche nerd being sort of, that socially awkward and all that kind of thing, But it seemed like it was really, really obvious based on what she was saying. So
yeah, so the kind of manners and stuff like that. So, for example, I was having a conversation with my girlfriend out the front of a nightclub. A security guard walks up and says, "Are those steel caps?" While I'm having a deep conversation. Like, there's no etiquette, like, to wait until someone's having a conversation to, before you enter it. Like, they're not lining up. You just go and ask, "Are those steel caps?" I'm like, well, maybe, but how do you know I'm going to come in? We're just having a conversation out the front.
Yeah,
it's like, what
he
the
was
hell?
assuming you're going to come in or something.
So why? And
did you end up going in though? Or?
Oh yeah, but that's not the point.
I know.
We weren't even talking about going in. So I just felt that was like, it's just the younger generation. They're just like rude. They think they can just talk to you, just interrupt. It's everyone's like. All the old-fashioned values are going away.
Yeah. And maybe it's a generational thing. Maybe I don't know, but
I think the internet sort of helps spread
social
all that.
media, especially. Yeah. That's something that we've kind of touched on before. With like on the first episode, we talked about like sort of how people are so divided and stuff like that. And it just seems like social media and the internet is just as good as all this stuff has brought us.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of negative stuff that has come along with it.
Yes, absolutely. It's teaching people that if someone's got a different opinion to you, you got to hate them and you got to think they're an idiot. But like when I was like growing up, I'm like, no, that was someone else's opinion.
Yeah.
And we were told like it's okay to have different opinions. Now it's here to they don't like the same color as you. It could be political party. I'm like, but it's just a stupid idea and your own preference or your own view standing point.
Yeah.
And how's that any difference to like an alien on a different planet thinking something else? You're gonna hate them too?
Yeah, no, exactly. And that plays again to like what we initially started off with about like being offended by a lot of what comedians are doing and saying. And it's like, if you bought a ticket to a place, for example, and then you got offended by someone what they were saying, it's like, but you paid to get in there, so you should expect to know that this is the kind of stuff that's happening.
Exactly, yeah.
So you justify, like if you just happened to be in a public place and someone was ranting like offensive stuff, you might have an argument then.
Yeah.
But if you're going into a private space and you've paid to get in and you're expecting a show and you're familiar with the comedian as well, then it's like, well, that's part of the, that's part of the show. So how to be offended by that is you have no justification for it.
Exactly. So. It's kind of, I don't know if you've seen like what's that restaurant called? We might show a clip of that where you go in to be offended. And
really?
Yes, they treat you like absolute shit.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that. Yeah, this is in the US somewhere. I think. Yeah.
And I think they were going to bring one over here.
Oh, right.
So, and I think that's probably not going to go too well because.
Is that place still there or open?
Oh,
or?
yeah. The people that want to be offended keep going there, but there are a lot of people that have no idea, and they're
just walking, going, "Oh, we're gonna get some food." And
that's right. And not only that, their family or their kids have brought them in there to see their mum and dad's reaction of being insulted, and they go fucking off the chops.
Yeah,
they go ballistic, and it is kind of funny, but I think this is a double-edged sword. By working there, I think you also become a shit person yourself because you think it's okay
probably
now to say people.
You start doing it in public life, in your personal life,
and you become an asshole because it's just like it's just normal. You're like, I can say shit now, and then you've gotten used to saying all this abusive stuff to people, and then you might get your head punched in because you said something.
Yeah. I mean, that's essentially just roasting. That's what it really is.
It is.
You're just sort of coming in there and like your waiter or whatever is just roasting you. But again, you can't be offended by if you know what to expect in that place, then you will know what to expect when they say shitty things to you.
I think it's going to be a dying, like eventually that restaurant will die because I think the way society is going, everyone's being like crying over spilled milk.
Well, I think the reason why restaurant even exists is because it's sort of like an antithesis, to, like a opposite to what everything. It's sort of like a pushback against everything that's been offended. So.
Bit of a rebellion.
Yeah, I kind of feel that maybe that's why it might still have like a thing going for it, because there are a lot of people. To be honest, I think most people in the world are not offended by they're not sensitive to bad jokes or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I think it's just a minority of like a bunch of few people that just don't know how to like deal with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because I do know that some people that because the brain's kind of stupid. It doesn't actually tell the difference between the fight or flight response. So if you've been struck or punched or stabbed or something, your body treats it like a big deal, and you can't get it out of your head.
Yeah,
and then you take so much offense, and it's basically torturing you.
Well, it's your experience. That's where a lot of the offended stuff sort of comes from, because they've had something happen in their own experience that sort of now that's that one thing that they cannot deal with anymore.
Yeah.
Well, as I said before, we all have that sort of one thing that we're offended by.
Yeah.
It just depends on how we deal with it,
and how often it happens to us, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. But then the really like that I can understand, being offended by something personal, because like say you like lost someone really close to like cancer, and then someone made a joke about cancer.
Oh, absolutely.
I understand that.
Yeah.
It's the other ones where you're being offended on behalf of other people.
Yeah.
Like especially
that's stupid. That's
especially the race thing. If you're like say for example a white person and you get offended by black jokes or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, what's that got to do with you? You have no idea what those people are like offended by, or what they, I mean, you're sort of doing things on behalf of them, and then kind of going out and protesting, and stuff like that. But it's got nothing to do with you, you know. In support of maybe, but not sort of like on behalf of them. That's not what you should be doing.
I think it's torturing yourself, man. Because if you think
then you get offended by everything.
Yeah, but you're torturing yourself over being offended on someone else's behalf, and you're feeling so horrible for it. Why are you doing that to yourself?
Yeah, maybe they get off of that, or maybe they just enjoy that feeling. The contrast between feeling really good and feeling really shitty, and there is this thing of like. It's that guy, Carl Pilkington. Have you heard of him from the Ricky Gervais show and Idiot Abroad and stuff like that?
Possibly.
He's a goofy guy, sort of like, who has a bit of a unique perspective on life and stuff. Unintentionally as well. Like, he's funny, but like unintentionally. He doesn't realize how funny he actually is.
Yeah.
And he was saying that like he likes the contrast in life of like, you got to go through all the bad stuff in order to really appreciate the good stuff in life.
Yeah.
And I kind of think there's a lot of merit to that, and I think some people like that feeling of like, going through the bad stuff and sort of taking it out on everyone else.
Yeah.
And then feeling good about it. You know what I mean? They like that sort of back and forth kind of thing, which is a very, I don't know, it's a psychological thing, I guess, but
it's like healing.
yeah.
I suppose in a way.
Or it's like I like in wintertime, for example, when you're really cold, and like there's nothing better than like warming up and like you know what I mean, getting that right temperature. Or even the opposite way, like it's full blown heat. And you're trying to cool down, you stand in front of the air conditioner. You know what I mean? That contrasting sort of feeling.
Like when you jump into sauna and then you just jump into the pool.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so cold, but it feels so good.
Yeah.
And then you repeat the process.
Yeah. So I think people like that also on an emotional level as well. Yeah. They like the sort of the bad and the good kind of thing.
It's kind of like a yo-yo effect, I think.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, it's not my kind of thing, but, whatever floats your boat, I guess.
Yeah.
So. But anyway, I think we should end things on that note. So give us your thoughts on what you think of like stand-up comedy and people being offended and things like that. And we'll come back in a couple of weeks' time and give you our report on the Louis C.K. show and see how that went. And
have some fun.
Let's see how many people walk out the door during the show. I mean, who knows? I mean, you never know. But I think Australians are like for the most part got a pretty good, like, and they can take most things in life.
Most things, yeah. But it's getting a little bit worse.
It is, yeah. It's not like it used to be. We'll see how we go. So cool. Thanks for tuning in, and follow us on all our social medias at Chimps Chinwag or Chimps on the Chinwag. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and also our YouTube channel. And we're also on Spotify, and we're trying to get this on the Apple podcast as well. I'm trying to figure it out, but it's been really frustrating because Apple would just have this they have a certain way of working, and I'm not an Apple person, so I can't figure out how. It's like trying to hack into NASA or something. They've got so many loopholes and things to jump through. I'm like, I just want to set up a podcast on your platform. It's all I want to do.
Should be simple.
Oh,
a one-click process.
Security codes and like messages and like emails and like I literally I had to go through so many, and by the end of it, I still couldn't get through.
That's shocking.
So, and I know there's going to be some like Apple, Mac users out there just saying you're an idiot. It's really simple. But I'm just not a Mac person. I hate Mac for that very reason, because they are so insular and restrictive on their platform. It's like you got to use all Apple products, nothing else.
And it costs so much.
Yeah, I prefer something that's a bit more, open-ended. You can utilize it in every other, platform. So
that's right. Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, that's a different conversation altogether. We're going off on another tangent. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks a lot.
Cool.
Bye.